Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Training Room. This is your host, Haley Herdman. I'm a former Division I basketball player and current mental health therapist.
And I am Naomi Yim, also a former Division I basketball player and a current real estate investor with a passion for athlete mental health.
Throughout our time as collegiate athletes, Naomi and I struggled with our emotional well-being, and we know from this experience how neglected the mental aspect of sports can be, which is why we created this podcast, to foster a safe space for other athletes to open up about their own experiences.
Whether you are an athlete, coach, parent, or anyone with an athlete in their circle, we hope you can gain some insight from our episodes.
Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Mental Training Room. Jalyn Mosley is a childhood friend of mine. She's one of my best friend's cousins. So we were my best friends. We were neighbors. And Jalyn is a former Iowa soccer player. And she is currently the host of the Jist Podcast, where she hosts episodes featuring unfiltered athlete stories and just really creating that space for current, former athletes to bond and to share experiences. And today we are here to talk about injury in sport. And I know Naomi went through her own injury. I had a minor little injury, nothing to the extent that you guys had. And Jalyn, I know you had a career-ending injury too. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Kind of.
But before we start, why don't you give us a little background into your soccer career? When did you start playing? How did you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was probably 3 years old, when they had the little foldable nets that they just, popped out. Good old days, right? But yeah, I just started playing, just the Park District. My mom, who was on your guys' earlier episode, Cindy Mosley, she played soccer collegiately and then professionally. So I always, had her to help me out and kind of, push me to play soccer, even though, my parents really made sure that I was in different sports and got to try out a lot of different things. Soccer was my sport, and it was great. I just remember, just from a young age, loving it, loving the team atmosphere and the competitiveness. I'm a very naturally competitive person. So I just think athletics was my outlet, and soccer just kind of came to me more natural.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like did you play soccer when you were younger, Nay?
I did not. My dad
Okay,
didn't allow
interesting.
me to.
Really?
He wanted me to focus on basketball.
Well, I didn't know that.
Well, yeah.
That's where the
I
money
feel
is now, so maybe he was right.
That's too funny. Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like soccer is a sport that everyone starts out with, but when I was gonna say that, I was like, I feel like Naomi, I've never heard any soccer stories from her.
No, I wish.
Yeah, that's so interesting. But yeah, soccer, I mean, my little brother's playing it now, and it's just such a fun sport when you're young. And then when I started to not like it was when all the running came in.
Running.
Yep.
And wait, did you guys have to run the beep test at Iowa?
Yep. Yeah, we did.
Oh my God.
That test, oh my gosh, I could
No.
get into that. Honestly, that test and my injury, it was a big, hard thing that I had to overcome. Yeah, because my injury, I know I haven't gotten into it, but my injury was cutting was really difficult for me. And that test is cutting over and over and over and over again. So yeah, I do not like that test, but we did have to run it in Iowa. We had to pass it. We had to get a certain number to be able to practice, and then we had to get a certain number to be able to play.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's how
I remember
players at LMU did it too.
And they had to run it every day until they passed.
Every day, yes.
But the crazy thing is, as different as soccer and basketball are, we had to run it too.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I would say not to the level that you guys had at, but it was still difficult.
Pretty sure Naomi holds the record for the program now. With the highest score.
Wow, good for you.
I don't even remember.
Do you remember? That's crazy. I was going to ask, do you remember the score?
I don't remember the score. I just remember I would always run until I saw stars.
Yeah.
That's how I knew I was at my threshold. I was like, run till you see stars.
Yeah, that's what it takes
But
for
the
that.
fact that we can't remember the number is just oh my God, because for 2 years that test
Was it
almost
haunted?
it made us so mentally ill, literally.
I can still recite the whole beginning that this is the Nike Yo-Yo Squawk version. I like know that
Yeah.
entire thing, the amount of times I've had to listen.
Was training all of the summer. So we had to go for basketball. We had to do our like first summer session. But because I live like 2 blocks away from LMU, I was training there before that with our strength trainer every day, like doing so well with the beep test. And the day we come back, I fucking failed the beep test. I did not pass, and I was so pissed because I had spent every single day before. I didn't have a summer. Like the summer that we got, I did not have because I was just too stressed about that.
Mhm.
And I was so excited. I remember Naomi picked me up. We were like blaring the music in the car, like we're gonna do this. And then I didn't pass, and it was horrible. And then I had to go take my passport picture. And I was crying in my passport picture. So now I have that as a memory for the next, now 2 years, I think,
Oh my gosh.
until my passport expires. So
Unforgettable.
anyways, that's just a little
That's
side
too
note.
funny. Well, one thing I will say about the beep test is I do think percent mental.
Oh yeah.
Especially because, like you said, people will do fine and pass it in practice, and then it's the day where it's like, oh, like I have to pass it, and then you just get in your own head, or you're running next to people and you're like, oh, I'm behind, and it really just messes with you. And actually, funny enough, I think there was somebody that my mom worked with who did the beep test with like earbuds in and was like listening to their own music, and they were having trouble passing it like time after time after time, and they ran it in with like earbuds to like listen to music and just kind of get their mind off of being stressed, and they passed it like super easy. So
I asked
Wait,
but
yeah.
told us no.
No, tell your story about the mile test with the earbuds.
Mine?
Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Oh, Naomi. Okay, so we also had to do a mile test. And Naomi was wearing her earbuds during it, but they were yelling because you didn't make the mile time, right? Yeah, they were yelling at her, and I think you snuck the earbuds in
Yeah, I
because
did.
they said no.
I did.
But then she put them on like as we started running, but they were yelling at her like, "Come on, Nay, like 2 seconds, like get here." But she couldn't hear because she had the earbuds in,
I know.
and she was literally like 1 second off from the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Anyways, okay, enough about that.
Back
Let's
on track.
conditioning test. Elite athletes know performance isn't just about what you do in the game. It's about how you prepare and how you recover. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Defend USA. If you want to stay in peak shape, you can't afford to ignore the power of recovery. That's where Defend USA comes in. Trusted by pros in the NBA, WNBA, MLB, NCAA, and beyond, Defend USA's compression gear is designed to help you train harder, recover faster, and perform at your best. Their military-grade compression technology boosts circulation, reduces muscle fatigue, and helps prevent injury, so you can push limits without breaking down. That's why the best athletes don't just train hard, they recover smarter. Level up your recovery, level up your game. Check out Defend USA at dfndusa.com and at DFNDUSA on Instagram, and get the gear trusted by the pros. Because true champions don't just train hard, they recover harder. But anyways, we're here to talk about injuries and the injuries that you guys went through. Jalyn, why don't you start us off kind of talking us through yours a little bit?
Yes. So I've had 5 knee surgeries in total.
Wow.
3 on one knee, 2 on the other.
Yeah.
I have torn my ACL on both sides, and then I've had meniscus damage, and then not to like run you through like every single one, but basically like ACL, meniscus, and then like those are like my problem areas, and I've had to get stuff like drilled in because it was derooted and reconstructed and just a bunch of stuff. But my first time getting injured was my sophomore year of high school. It was right after I committed, actually, thankfully, and I was at a tournament in Florida, and I tore my ACL. Funny enough, both times I tore my ACL, I was out of state, and I had to fly on a plane the next day with torn ACL. Yes, which is not fun. And actually, there's like a lot of health things that you have to do your like for blood clots and like stuff like that, which I
Yeah.
didn't know. But yeah, that was kind of my first experience was in high school injuring it. And honestly, I do think getting injured early kind of helped me to like learn about myself and like learn about the process. So then that way when it happened again in college, it was like a little bit easier because I had been through it before. But yes, knees are my problem area.
Yeah. So sophomore year of high school was your first time, and then you didn't injure again until college?
Yes, so I got injured. I tore my ACL my sophomore year, and then freshman year, which was for college, kind of weird because it was COVID year. We didn't end up playing until the spring. So I was able to get through like pretty much all of the spring. It was the game before the playoffs or like the tournament that I tore my ACL. We were in Maryland. We were playing Maryland. And yeah, actually, the story of how it happened is like really, really frustrating. So the referee had one of those electric whistles, if you've seen those before.
Yeah,
But
because they couldn't use the
yeah,
regular
but
whistle.
it was like out of battery. Like it was like barely kind of working. Like it was very faint. And she had blown the whistle and everybody stopped except the girl who had the ball. She crossed it across the box. And the girl who was across the box that like I was supposed to be marking, she didn't hear it. So she kept playing. Like she was running towards the ball. So I was kind of like, shoot, like I thought I heard the whistle, but I wasn't sure. So I had hesitated. And then at that point, like I was behind because I stopped. So I was just kind of like taking longer strides than I would have typically taken. And it was a non-contact injuries. And he just kind of gave out.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
And was it the same knee as before?
No, so it was my other knee.
Okay.
Yep. That I had
Gosh.
torn. And yeah, that was tough because I knew right when it happened what it was.
Yeah.
Because it's just a very distinct feeling. It feels like when you bang your knee really hard on like this corner of a coffee table and you're like ow, like for 20 seconds, it feels like you're like dying inside. It's like that, except it's just constant. Like you just know that something popped. So that was pretty tough. Just, and it happened on like national TV. Like I had texted all my family and friends, like I'm playing, like I'm gonna be on TV, like tune into the game, and then it's like everyone sees me on the ground. So that was tough.
That is really hard.
From the two injuries from sophomore year of high school and into college, obviously in high school you're with your family, living at home, and in college you're obviously on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a difference with recovery because you had family, do you feel like? Or how do you feel like the recovery process went in general?
That's actually a really good question. There's definitely a lot of differences. Luckily, my mom was able to like come in for my surgery even in college. So those like initial days that are really tough, it was helpful to have her there. So I feel like that was pretty similar in both situations. But in college, you're really in charge of your own recovery. And
Yeah.
that's something you can probably like relate with, like just being a student athlete in general, like even you, Haley, like, I don't know, it's just different when you have to advocate for yourself and like just, even when you're just in pain, like I was coming back from one of my injuries and I was having swelling and I was having pain and the doctor was saying, it's going to take time, like you have to give it a little bit more time and you got to push through the pain. And there was something inside me that was like, no, like something's wrong still. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed for another MRI and they didn't want to give it to me. And then finally I got it and they were like, yep, like something's completely detached and wrong. So I think that is like the main thing I would probably say is just having to like advocate for myself and make sure I'm on top of PT and like on top of just, staying up to date with like the plays and like what's still going on because it's like you're missing out, but you have to stay up to date. And I definitely think it's more difficult in college.
And I asked that because I never got hurt in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing was like shin splits. And my freshman year of college, that's when I had shoulder surgery and all the issues with my shoulder. And that was the biggest thing that I realized was having to advocate for myself, having to tell the trainers like, no, I'm really hurting today. Even with my head coach, I had to advocate for myself to even get surgery. So I was curious on how you felt like it was different on both ends with being at home and then also kind of just being on your own in college.
Yeah. And I also too would say like, and I'm not sure if this is your experience, but I feel like having an injury is almost extra work, which like a lot of people don't realize.
Yes.
Because it's like you still have to go to practice, you still have to go to film, and then after that, instead of, going home like everyone else and showering and going to class, you have to go to physical therapy and you have to go ice bath or you have to go get, your stim with the trainer or whatever it may be. So it's like, it's just so much more of a time commitment than people realize, I feel.
And how was, because for me personally, my mental headspace in that, having to go to practice, watching everybody get to play. I never had to sit out in basketball.
Mhm.
And so having to watch people play for an entire year. And then, like you said, on top of that, you have to then go to PT while everybody gets to go home and you're hurting as well because you have this injury. So how do you feel like the mental side of things were for you during that process?
Oh, it was hard. I mean, there's ups and downs. Luckily, one of my really, really good friends and my roommate, in college, she also dealt with injuries. So I felt like it was helpful to just have somebody that was like with me on the sidelines and like kind of going through the same thing. But I feel like it's a big learning experience. Like you learn about yourself and it's humbling, especially like going into college, everyone's kind of the best from wherever they're from. So when you are sitting on the bench and you're like, wow, I'm not even here for what I came here for, it's kind of discouraging. But I think the main thing for me is just like finding my role is like that kind of helped me because like on a team, like there can only be so many star players, and like when you're injured, that's not going to be you. So like how can you like help the team? How can you make an impact? I remember there being like girls on our team who weren't injured, but they were just like not starters and they were, the most fun people. They were, who you wanted to be next to on the bench. They were who would hype you up when you did something good on the field. And like that was much more impactful than, somebody who wasn't, in a good headspace and stuff like that. So I think for me, just like being able to find my role on the team helped. But yeah, definitely still, difficult to just go through.
Right.
How about you? How do you guys feel it was just going through injury? Or actually, Haley, I wanted to say something because at the beginning you were saying like, oh, I didn't really like have an injury or go through an injury, but I do think that everyone like has their own experience, and even if it isn't like the biggest injury to somebody, it's like their first time dealing with being out and not being able to play. So I think everyone's injury stories are very valid, from their perspective.
Well, what you guys were talking about when it came to advocating for yourself, like the MRI, and I know Naomi advocating even to get your surgery, to get your red shirt year.
Right.
And where I feel like my injury became bigger than it even needed to be, I had tendonitis in my right, like inner calf area. And it was like everyone always says, like push through. And this was our freshman year fall. So like first preseason, I was a walk-on. My confidence was like already shot to the ground. And then having that injury, which ended up, I knew what I needed was just like soft tissue work. So I had it before, I had it in high school. And for some reason, the trainers are like so against soft tissue work. And they're like, strengthen it, this. And I'm like, yes, but also I need soft tissue work. Like I know how to get through this because it's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
They were making me do stuff with the, can't remember the name of this either.
Bar?
The BFR? Yeah,
Gosh.
the BFR. Yeah.
I hate that.
Horrible. And I'm like, this is the last thing I need. Tendonitis is an overworked injury. So to work it even more made no sense to me. But I'm like, okay, I'm trusting the trainers. Like, I'm new here. This is not like Naomi said, I'm not in high school. I don't know the trainers. I can't just walk in and be like, I need this. Like I'm a freshman. I'm a walk-on. I felt like I literally had no value there.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say anything. Then it comes to like, I literally can't walk. Like it felt like I was walking on needles coming out of the shower after practice. And I told my dad, and for a long time, my dad, not in a bad way, but my dad was like, like do what they're saying. Like because we're all trying to fit into this new system. It's basically, so I'm like, I'm doing everything that they're saying. I couldn't walk. It literally felt like I was walking on needles, walking to class, practicing all of this stuff. So my dad, and like, he's like an uncle to me, this guy would come, and I had to make more time out of the time that I was already supposed to be doing PT and stuff to go back home, which thankfully was only like 15 minutes away, but to get extra soft tissue work in because they wouldn't give it to me at school. And it got so bad that I had to be in a cast for tendonitis. Like, that's not a thing. And I feel like silly saying it sometimes because no one is in a cast for tendonitis. But that just shows, like, how much you know your body. Like, and always to speak up about that. And then full circle, it came back a little bit my senior year. And we had a new trainer, we had a new doctor and everything. And they're like, oh, all this needs is some soft tissue. And I was like, thank you. Like, thank you so much. I needed this 3 years ago. I needed this all throughout my 4 years. And it took 4 years for someone there at the school to give me what I needed. I went to my uncle's a physical therapist too, like went all these other places. But all of that to just say, I really resonated with what you guys were saying about the advocating for yourself, because that's so, so important. And unfortunately is the reality.
And two, I mean, I will be the first person to say, like, get a second opinion. Like, I got a second opinion for like my injuries and like my surgeries, and like I would recommend everyone else do it too, because like you said, like everyone's trying to fit into this new system, and you don't want to like mess up anything or like kind of change it up. But whoever your trainer is, like, that might not be the person who you would choose to like go to the doctor. Like, you know what I mean? You can't really choose who your trainer is, and just because they have like a certain philosophy or like they think that they know how to treat whatever it is. But I do think getting second opinion and like you did, having to go outside, like if it can save you from being in a cast or getting further injured, I feel like it's worth it. What would you guys do if you could like go back? How would you handle it differently?
Such a good question. Naomi, you go. Give us a little background too into your shoulder, like that injury and that whole process, because that was a lot.
Yeah, I think that question is a great gateway to how I would approach things differently, because like you said, Jalyn, you really focused on something outwardly rather than what was happening to your body. And obviously, you're working on your body constantly throughout recovery. But something that stuck out with what you said that I completely did the opposite was to focus on your teammates and focus on giving rather than just worrying about yourself, because that's something that I would completely do differently, is not to just worry about myself. Everything was about me and my recovery. Not selfishly, but unselfishly, I had to sit through practices, and no joke, I sat there. I didn't say a word. I was thinking about myself. I think that was my whole LMU experience for the 3 years that I was there. After that freshman year, I was just so focused on myself. I was very thrown off about how my head coach handled the injury and everything that I went through. She didn't want to give me my redshirt year. She didn't want me to get surgery because she wanted me to continue playing. And I was so thrown back because of how much she pursued me during high school, and all the things that she said was amazing. And that's just what the recruiting process is in general. They're going to pursue you. They're going to tell you everything. They're going to paint you the best picture. And so when I heard those things come out of her mouth, I was so taken back. And I'm not trying to bash her or anything. That's just the truth of the journey.
It was the reality
I had to experience. And it was really shocking to me. And so from that moment on, and that was in my immature self, I held a grudge for the rest of the 3 years. And it's something that I do regret, in the sense of it did only affect me. It didn't affect the team at all in a way. I was just so angry. How do I explain myself? I was just very immature. And so that is something big I would really focus on if I could go back, is not focusing so much on myself and giving more and thinking about my teammates and showing up for them in ways that I can't. Yeah, just giving more to my teammates, more to the program, rather than just thinking about my own injury and my own problems and my own issues all day. So that's what I would fix.
Okay, I have so much to say to that. And I'm over here, like, literally about to cry.
Don't cry.
We've never talked about this before,
Yeah,
right?
never. Yeah.
And it is like, everything that you're saying, it sounds so great. And it would be amazing to do that, but we weren't in a place to do that.
No.
Like, for a little context too, Naomi and I were inseparable. Like, trauma bonding at its finest.
Yeah.
Like, texting each other while we're going to the bathroom next to each other, like...
How practice is going terribly.
Yeah.
Like, we were just feeding into each other.
Yeah. Like, everything we did, we were doing together because we were so scared. So we were just taken out of ourselves. That's bottom line. But hearing you say that, I completely understand how you're in your space now, looking back and wanting to do that. But I hope that you don't feel like I just don't even think, in the most respectful way possible, like, I don't think that was even possible for you to have done that in the moment. But it's not your fault. Like, we love our teammates. Our teammates are awesome. But we weren't the only ones that were having mental health issues.
It was the culture in general.
We entered a team that was, like, very divided on their own terms. And again, no one's fault. Like, we were put into this environment to go against each other, to have this group, have that group.
Top down.
Yeah.
Completely. But like you said, Jalyn, you had teammates that were the spark of the team. Even if they didn't have playing time, that was not our culture at all. And that is another reason why I would have loved to bring that as someone who was hurt. Maybe they wouldn't have expected it as much, but I mean, just looking back, I wish I could have brought that energy and brought that different perspective. And because I wasn't playing, I was watching them play every single day from practice to games. Like, that's all I did. So having that perspective, I know I could have helped in a lot of ways, but I was just so focused inwardly. And I do feel like I don't know how I would have done that in that moment and in the space I was in and in the culture I was in. But I mean, looking back, that's what I wish I would have done.
Yeah.
And, it's so easy to say that in, like, hindsight, because when you're going through it and you're in pain every day and, like, you're having to watch, like, that's the worst, like, watching practice, watching people, like, do amazing things and, like, be so happy and come off and be like, it's hard to not feel, like, a little jealous and a little envious and, like, all of that. And I think too, like, the other hard pill to swallow is, like you were mentioning before, like, they're gonna hype you up in high school and then you get there and you get injured and, like, you're not doing anything for them. Like, it's hard, but, like, you're dispensable. Like, every athlete is dispensable, no matter what a coach says to you. If you get injured and you're not playing for them, they're going to be texting you less. They're going to be talking to you less. Like, that's just how it works. And I think that's one thing that I'm so grateful for my parents about is, since them both being athletes, they always kind of instilled in us this idea of, like, it's a business. Just sports in general, athletics in general, like, it's a business. And the same way, like, the coach wants you to perform, like, they're paying you, they're paying for your school, and that's why you're there, is to play. And so if you can't do that, you have to just try and make the most of it. But yeah, it's tough.
Sure.
And I think also not having that role model of, like, what an energetic or what that spark of a teammate, like, brings was also that, like, went into the way that you kind of handled the injury too. And to be so invalidated with the injury already, like, that setup is just awful. This episode is sponsored by PhysioWorks Physical Therapy. Sports aren't just about skill, it's about strength. And I'm not just talking about physical strength. Athletes train their bodies, push their limits, and build muscle to perform at their best. But what happens when injury strikes, or when movement just doesn't feel right? That's where PhysioWorks Physical Therapy comes in. PhysioWorks isn't just about recovery, it's about unlocking your full potential. Their expert team helps you rebuild strength, improve mobility, and prevent future injuries, so you can get back to doing what you love.
because strong muscles create strong athletes. At Physio Works Physical Therapy in Redondo Beach, California, they understand that true performance is both physical and mental. Because a strong body fuels a strong mind, and when both are in sync, that's when you truly win.
But for both of like what you guys are both saying on this topic about like that community around you when you're injured, what advice would you have for people who have teammates who are injured and kind of how to help them through that process as well? Because like you're saying, you could be in that position where you're injured, you're hyping everyone up, and then sometimes, everyone has their own things going on, so it's hard to stay connected to how everyone else is feeling. But what would you say is the biggest advice, or if you could tell something to people who are dealing with injured teammates, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing that I would have wanted or have had as an injured athlete on a team, especially in college, when you don't have your family there, and most people don't have family around and things like that on a day to day. But I would say I would have wanted my teammates to make me speak, like make me talk about how I felt, whether that's like weekly, monthly. Like you said, you've never heard me talk about this, but like it's just something that is like a daze for you when you're in this process. And so having someone come up to me and ask me, I probably would have started immediately crying, but he's saying something, instead of just being so in my head. I think that's something that I know a lot of athletes who are injured and going through this process, because a lot of times these injuries, especially if you have surgery, like my recovery process was like 8 months. And so like 8 months of just inward thinking and just watching everybody play, it's a lot. And so I think just having teammates that would come up to you and ask you like, how are you actually? Whether they cry or not, or say everything that they feel, just continuously, persistently asking them at least monthly. I think that would be a big thing.
I can kind of piggyback off of that. I do think it's like important. It's funny because I actually like in a sense hated when people would ask me that, because it would be like, well, people would ask me like at practice, or and it would be not to say like ingenuine, but I'm not gonna tell you what's really going on when you're walking off to get your water and you're just like, oh, how's it going? Like, how's your knee? It's like, yeah, it's the person who is like, hey, like, let's go grab a cup of coffee and like talk about like what you're going through, or like what are you excited about? For me, I think it was small wins is like what I would call it. And that was something I did for myself. But then after coming out of injury, or like going back and forth and seeing other teammates that were injured, like I would always just try and celebrate the small wins with them. Getting your brace off, like that is a small win. Even if you're not running, like being able to unlock your brace, like that's another small win. And I think that like really helps to keep a positive mindset and, just kind of track the progress in this like super long 6-month or 12-month journey. So that would be mine, is just like noticing, paying attention to the details, and like showing that you genuinely care. And then the other thing I would say, which I think sometimes is like even a bigger gesture, is like actually like being supportive and like showing support. Because it's one thing for somebody to like ask about how you're doing and like check in with you, and then you like text in the group chat like, hey, I need a ride to PT, I'm on crutches, and like no one's there to help out. Like those are the moments where it's like, dang, like I really need someone's help. And that was hard for me, because I'm like very independent and I do not like asking for help. But when it's snowing outside and you're on crutches and you have no other way to get to class, like you have to ask for help sometimes. And I think just having teammates who were there and just like offered themselves and offered their help was probably the most helpful thing for me. So that's what I would recommend to anyone out there who has a friend going through it.
What you just said with like teammates offering to help and things like that. Like, I tell this to Haley all the time. Everyone going to college, they're still kids. You guys are, as much as you guys don't want to admit, maybe unless you're like a 6-year senior now, that's very common. I think that's a big thing that I would emphasize on the coaches end, if any coaches are listening, is to really, really buy into the kids who are injured and to announce things at practice if, you get your brace off or you don't have to wear a sling anymore. The smallest things like literally will make our day because our day is so mundane. It's the same thing every single day. BFR, stretch, rub your scar. Like it's the same thing constantly. And the little changes are things that inwardly we're so happy about, but nobody notices. And so I think that's a big thing that coaches should take out of this is to celebrate your players that are injured and the little things that happen, and also acting as a parent, as a coach, and really pushing to your team to support their siblings, their players, their teammates, like understanding like you're kind of the parent in the situation here. And so my parents, they've always pushed to support your brothers, be there for your brothers in any way possible. So I'm naturally like that, but some people don't have siblings. Some people come from different walks of life, so they might not think that is important. And so as a coach, really emphasizing that.
Yeah. I like that. Actually, you made me think of kind of on the flip side, like what not to do if you're a teammate, because this like irked me so bad. I think it's great when people want to like relate, and there's like this just innate feeling of people wanting to relate to you and wanting to like feel like they're on your level and they get what you're going through. And to that, I would just say don't, because
Yeah.
it's really hard when like somebody compares who's like not at all like in the realm, and people mean well too. That's like the hardest thing is like that they mean well, but it still can be so frustrating. Somebody who's like been in a knee brace for a little bit or whatever, and then you're over here like, oh well, I've had like 3 surgeries, like, and you're over here complaining like with me. Like I get it, but like also like come on. So I would say like just being careful about like when you're around those people, like obviously you don't have to like change who you are, or like you don't have to like make yourself less than, but I think just being mindful of like who you're around and like what you're talking about. Like maybe don't go and talk to the injured person about how annoying it is that you like got pulled out for the last like 3 minutes of the quarter, like when they're not even playing for the next few months. Like just be mindful.
100%.
That's all I would say to that.
That's a really good point. And in all of this too, what you guys are saying is reminding me of a physical trainer that we had at LMU who was just such a saint he was like a more on like the doctor side of physical training, and he would work with athletes from all different sports after surgery, and everyone just bonded with him so nicely and smoothly because he really took the time to listen to them. And even within that physical training, I would always see him like connect athletes who were going through maybe the same surgery or different surgery, but still in the same process. We've had so many teammates that have felt like he was a savior to them. In all of that too is like surrounding yourself with people that are going to listen to you and that will be there for you for genuine support. And also I remember a lot of teammates talking to him a lot about things outside of the sport, because when you're taken out of your sport, it gives you that time, like you said, Jalyn, at the beginning, to really learn things about yourself, find out what drives you outside of the sport. And I think it's always great to fill your cup with those type of conversations when you're maybe sidelined by injury as well.
And I will say too, like there's so many negative parts of like injury and like just like things that you like miss out on and stuff, but like there are so many great things that came out of my injury. I will say, like, now that I can look at it in hindsight, there was a time where I didn't travel for away games because I couldn't play. And I was able to go to football games, which, fall sports, like we really weren't able to go to football games. Me and my best friend who were injured, we would go to football games because the team was traveling and we had nothing else to do. And we made the most of it. And it was so fun. And, no one else on the team who was traveling got to experience that. So I feel like when you can like make light out of situations or like just try and find like the good parts of it, I don't know, it just makes the experience better.
Yeah,
I agree.
That is a great point. And it's so healthy to do that too, to make sure that you're getting that social connection in as well, because a lot of the time sport is that social connection. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. With all of that being said, Jalyn, and with everything that you endured when it came to your knee injuries, when did you know it was time to medically retire, and what was that process like for you?
Mm-hmm. It was tough. That's the first thing I would say is it's never easy to walk away from something that you've done your entire life. But I knew it was time to walk away when I knew my life after soccer was going to be affected by it. And that's something I would say to like anyone out there who like is going through injury or like considering medical retirement. Like your life is so much bigger than your sport and you're going to have so much more life. I know my mom always says like, "Oh, that was a life ago" when she talks about soccer, but it is so true. Like you have so many different stages in life and athletics is just one of them. Even if you go and play professional, like it's literally just one of them. And I want to be able to like walk around with my kids when I'm older and, hopefully stay athletic and be able to work out still. And with the surgeries that I would have needed to continue playing and just like where my body was at, it was recommended that I medically retired. So I followed the doctor's directions and medically retired. And it was tough, but I think for me at that point, like my identity really wasn't in soccer anymore. And so it made it easier to walk away. And at that point too, I really would have had like maybe 1 or 2 years if I would have like used my extra eligibility. So I knew it was gonna have to come to the end at some point, and I just wanted to walk away, with my health as much as I could. And yeah, I'm grateful for the decision that I made, even though it was tough. I had a great experience playing soccer, even if it wasn't exactly how I thought that it would end up or how I wanted it to end up. But I think like it was God's plan. And now I'm able to talk about it on podcasts like this and, maybe help somebody else who's going through it. So, yeah.
Yeah. What did you go through any mental challenges at the time when you did have to make that decision?
Yeah, I think for me, it just felt like the worst ending possible. It just like everyone wants to end on a high note. So it just like felt like, dang, like this is really how it's ending, like how it's going out. And I wouldn't say like embarrassing, but yeah, like it's not fun to have people ask, why, like what happened. So I think that was like part of it is like, oh, what am I gonna tell people? Like how is that gonna work? And then like coming from a super athletic family too on top of it, I was like, dang, I really feel like the dud of the family. But I mean, they're obviously everyone's so awesome. But yeah, I do think it was hard, but I think being able to talk through it with my parents and they were super supportive, and then my doctor was like, "This is really the right decision, girl. Like I think you should do it." It helped give me clarity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What would you think is the best advice you would give somebody through that transition? Not making the decision, but after the decision.
That's actually a really good question. I think so. For me, I needed a break from soccer after all of that. From watching it, from like, I wouldn't say like my team because I was like cool with my team, but I just think I needed like some separation from it. Yeah, I needed some separation from it. And like part of me like felt bad that I wasn't, able to like, I wasn't going to like as many games and like stuff like that. But just for like my own personal, like mental, I think it was the right decision to just kind of start this new chapter, kind of like clean slate. And now it's fun because like I can go back and I feel like it's like the right timing, that I've like been able to kind of like settle my feelings with it. But I think my advice for somebody else is just, once you're out of it, like just do what feels right. For some people, it feels right to like immediately stay with it and, watch it. Like I know some people love watching or they love playing rec or they find, a new outlet.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just to take some time doing things that I couldn't do with soccer because there are so many things that you can't do with collegiate athletics, like just having free time to like have fun. So I think that was kind of what I focused on, initially. But how about you guys? What was your favorite thing to do like post athletics?
You first, Haley.
This is a new thing that I'm kind of adapting to, but not doing morning workouts, doing evening, afternoon workouts. For so long, I was like, I love morning workouts. Great start to the day. Like, this is awesome. And then realizing, why am I waking up so early? Like, I can wake up at normal people hours now, and I can do a 4 p.m. workout. Like, I think the freedom over my workout schedule, I guess I would say, is a huge thing.
I think for me, my first thought that comes to my head was just diving into what I wanted to do after basketball. Obviously, I didn't have like a medical retire ending, but I kind of phased out of basketball my last year, my master's year. And so slowly throughout that year, I very much distanced my thought process of basketball in general and just making it like my entire life. I completely separated myself from that aspect. Like when I was in the gym, I was in the gym. I came early just to get the shots up out of the way. And then I went home and I dove into figuring out what I wanted to do outside of basketball. And I tried a lot of different things, and I do recommend people to try that. I got into sales, I started doing nails, I did a lot of different things, and I figured out what my next passion was going to be. And I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but I definitely did distance myself from basketball for probably like 2 years. I didn't want to see nothing about basketball. And my brother came along, and he's in the high school process, and I've kind of found my joy in basketball with helping him and like giving him the advice that I knew I needed. But other than that, I think that was how I figured that out.
Yeah. No, that's good. Actually, what you said was like, I feel like the words I was looking for, but I didn't know how to say it. But find something else to put your passion into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's my
And I
best
think the
advice.
biggest thing that we can take from everything that we all talked about today, when it was injury or transitioning out of sport, whatever it is that nobody's process or experience is linear, but where the alignment comes in is the emotions that we feel. And again, the mental side of the game. Like that is all something that every athlete of every level can relate on. And I think it creates such a beautiful community. Like us three right now, we're connecting over it, and just being able to, find that community throughout your life wherever it fits.
And that's a wrap for today's session in the mental training room. If you found value in this episode, make sure to subscribe to our show, share it with a teammate, friend, parent, or anyone you think would benefit from listening, and follow us on Instagram at mtr.pod.
We'll catch you next time inside the mental training room. If you are currently experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 for emergency support.